All right, let's welcome in. He's going to be a Hall of Famer in about, I guess they'd call that 5 years. And we love having him in studio, Mr. Jason Kelce. Good morning, Jason.
How's it going, Joe? Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you, sir. As, of course, Jason, as always, brought to us by, as I flip through my pages here, Garage Beer, which, by the way, is not just any beer. It's, Jason's beer. The garage is always open. Light beer like it used to be. Find Garage Beer at your local retailer or drink garagebeer.com, official beer of the Kelce brothers and dads everywhere. How you been, Jason?
Doing great. Happy to be back this week.
You enjoy seeing your buddies out in Ohio?
Heck yeah, man. Traveling all over the place, you barely get to see a lot of the people that you kind of have grown up with or went to college with. So it was awesome to kind of reconnect with a bunch of those guys this past week. Yeah, had a lot of fun.
It is. We think, I used to think that what a great gig. Doing games, getting to do the 1 day a week thing. It's not 1 day a week,
right.
Is it? I mean, it feels like you must be nonstop, moving.
Well, I have a bunch of other things outside of that, too, between the podcast, and I'm kind of getting all sorts of things. And then on top of that, to do that job on Monday, you really have to stay plugged into the NFL landscape.
Sure.
And so it's a full-time gig for sure.
Absolutely.
I think if you want to do it well, I mean, just about anything in this world, it doesn't matter what it is. If you want to be good at it, you're going to have to put time in, and it's the reality of it.
Totally. One thing that's always struck me about national broadcasters, there's some stuff that can go, let's say they're talking about, I'll just pick a team, the Rams. Stuff can go over our head. We might not be hardcore knowing the Rams, but there's a couple million people out in Los Angeles that know if you're wrong, they know.
Dude, I've thought about this so many times.
And we know that
be an
here.
imposter.
Yeah.
It's really and it's really hard to know at the level that the fans know. They're always going to be like, well, that's not quite true. That guy was better in practice. That guy, it's hard.
Because, Jason, you can't actually possibly watch every play of every game. Every play.
Some guys do. I mean, like
Collinsworth, maybe?
Orlovsky and some of these guys are really watching every single play. And I try to watch as much as I can, especially the matchups that are really worth focusing in on, all 22 copies and really dig in. But to do that, I mean, if I really want to sit down and watch an offense and watch a game that happened and really write down notes, that's a 3-4 hour deal to do that well, the way I've done it my whole career, right? So it's a watered down version, even if you are watching all the plays.
Jason, let's talk about this team. And again, Jason in studio with us for an hour and fielding phone calls at 215-592-9494. And coming up shortly, I want to get to something Nick Nurse said last night, which I thought put better context on the Joel situation. You can be the judge if you like it or not, but what Nick Nurse said we'll get to shortly. Of course, if you want to react to the Sixers' loss last night, and they didn't have a ton of a shot without Joel and Paul George, but Jason, this team, so it was a good win the other day. There's no question. It was a thorough win. It was a convincing win. I think the thing we're all trying to figure out is, have they actually become good, or did just a 2-2 team become 4-2 because they did probably play two of the 5 worst teams in pro football, Cleveland and the Giants? How do you balance out who they played versus what we hope they've become?
Yeah, I think, it's always good that you're winning. The Browns win, not very impressive at all, right? You're playing a team that's struggling. But I think you try and look at things of are we improving in the areas that we've kind of struggled in? And it's hard to know on defense because the last 2 offenses have been so bad, especially at the quarterback position. They aren't really playing at a high level right now for multiple of reasons. But I think they're playing really well against bad quarterbacks, which is better than playing mediocre against bad quarterbacks.
That's right.
True.
Which a lot of defenses do sometimes.
But the question is, are those young pass rushers, are they actually getting better? Or are the opponents just,
Yeah, because we have seen, in the last 2 weeks, we've seen Sweat get a sack.
Yeah.
I think we saw Huff.
We saw Jalix Hunt get a sack.
Yeah.
Is that real?
Well, they're playing better the last couple of weeks, but they're also getting into pass rushing situations, right? They're getting into third down and long. We're getting ahead in points, so they're getting more opportunities. So I think that with more opportunities, they look much, much better. Bryce Huff and all these guys, when they know they can pin their ears back and get after the quarterback, it's a lot easier to rush the passer.
See, that's the sad truth. It is just so common sense.
Yeah.
It really is. Football is pretty straightforward. When you get ahead, you get a lead, you start pass rushing, guys get sacks.
No, it's good. It really
all works.
But I think that as a whole, I think the defense has looked much better these last 2 weeks. This is a really big test for them. Joe Burrow's playing out of this world.
Yep.
They're not as good and from a running game perspective, but it's a good test for the secondary and for the pass rush. Their line isn't good at run blocking, but they do protect Joe pretty decently. So
does it feel like our defense has an identity? Like we talk about our offensive identity all the time. Are we going to run the ball? Are we going to throw the ball? Can you sense a defensive identity yet, other than we like to send a gap pressure every once in a while? I mean, that's sort of boring.
I mean, when I think of like an identity, I usually think of like the defensive coordinator, and maybe that's just because of the way I usually prepared was like, you're getting ready for, okay, this is the fronts he likes to run, this is the blitzes they like to do, and I think Vic does what he does, right? He's done that his whole career. He believes in things. He's very convicted as a defensive coordinator. I think that the identity that I think the Eagles are starting to develop is like they have a defensive line that can be very physical and very good. I don't know, pass rushing wise, they've proven the last couple of weeks in pass rushing situations they can be effective. I think the secondary, although we had some games early with Tampa Bay and Falcons, I think they're now playing more aggressive. They're and I think some of that maybe is some calling things. I don't want to I don't know that for sure, but it just feels like they're in guys' face more. Like there's a Quinyon Mitchell's in Malik Neighbors. He's not playing off, right? Which I think takes away sometimes some of those easy, completions that we saw earlier in the season. So
are those guys, those young guys, Cooper DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell, when you look at them play, are they super ahead of schedule to your expert eye? These guys are out there. We're asking them this week to cover some of the best wideouts in America, in the world for that matter. Yeah. How do they hold up?
Well, we will see this week. This is a big test, right? I think that they've held up really well to this point in the season for the most part. I mean, I am an expert on football. I am not an expert at gauging defensive backs. I will put that out there right now. Like, if I'm scouting cornerbacks, we're in a bad situation. But I do think that, Quinyon has played at a really high level for a rookie. And generally, when the buzz of like every major media outlet is saying this kid's doing a really good job, which is what they're saying, it's usually pretty true. Cooper obviously didn't start early on. Now he's playing. Looked good in the first start this past week. So we'll see how he continues to move along. Yeah.
I'll tell you this, John, your question about defensive identity, because it's an interesting one. So as you two were talking there, my thought was so you're talking about style of defense and that. I think the identity isn't as much about style. I think it's more about just, for the most part, a ton of young players to see how they develop over the course of a season. And I know that's not what you were going for, because you're talking about how do they play stylistically. But if you really go through it, there's very few guys that are past their first contract. Gardner Johnson and Slay and Sweat, and obviously Brandon Graham, but he's a part-time player. I mean, you really go through the young guys, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Quinyon Mitchell, Reed Blankenship in year 3, Cooper DeJean, Nakobe Dean, the other linebacker.
Well, Bond's past his first contract.
Okay, Bond, yeah. But it's not much of...
The other linebacker.
I forgot his name.
Come on, man.
Has he made a play since week 1?
He's been pretty good.
Week 1 of this guy's Mike Singletary.
I think he had a
week
sack
1.
last week, didn't he?
All right, settle down.
He played well last week.
The other guy. I still don't know the name of the punter. I call him, what is the name of the punter?
Braden Mann. He's the best. Okay. We've been waiting to have a punter forever. He's great. He's the best punter since Donnie Jones.
Donnie Jones, who was what, James?
A weapon.
He was a weapon. Donnie Jones was a weapon. All right, let's get a lot of calls in here. All right, let's talk to Drew in Westchester. I want to get to this Nick Nurse audio soon as well. Drew, good morning, buddy.
Hey, good morning, folks. Happy anniversary. And Jason, always good to talk to you. I know I know in retirement you've kind of made a name for yourself sometimes having non-football takes. I know you did something about like soap and all. I'm just curious. Do you have any like major Thanksgiving opinions? I was thinking about maybe pivoting to like brisket from turkey this year. Do you have any like hot Thanksgiving takes at all?
Man, brisket. Man, that's pretty un-American.
Why don't you roast a giant pig on the spit?
It's un-American and American at the same time. I don't know how that works, but that's awesome.
Brisket's great.
We were never a big turkey household.
Really?
I think part of that, like, my mom was a great cook. we had a lot of dry turkey. I'm going to be very honest.
Well, hold on. If your mom's a great cook.
You're fantastic.
Whoa. Are you ripping your mom right now?
Did not see this coming today.
I'm just being
Poor
honest.
Donna.
Like, I think turkey is a very hard thing to make.
It's terrible.
It's like,
Jason, we do roast chicken in our house.
Kylie's giving me crap about this. I bought a turkey fryer last week because I'm like, dude, I'm done with not making this thing delicious, because the only good turkey I've really ever had is fried turkey.
Yeah, no, you nail it every time.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to mess it up. Put a bunch of peanut oil in there, lather it with butter and season.
It can be dangerous, Jason. Be careful.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is your mom messed it up. That's what you're saying.
I mean, I think the oven messed it up.
All right, Drew, what do you got on the birds?
I did not mean for Donna to catch a stray.
It was the oven's fault. Serious.
So on the Eagles, Joe, I'm definitely, I'm not over the fence, but I think I'm higher up on the fence than you. And I know their record's not great, but I think this Bengals team is pretty good. So I think, if Eagles win this Sunday, I'm definitely on board. My big reason, I feel like I'm a little bit in the minority here, but I believe in the head coach. Like, these players seem like galvanized to me behind him, and what happened a couple weeks ago, reminds me a little bit of like the Flower speech in 2021, where like Nick got ripped, but the players, jumped on his back. So I think there's X's and O's reasons to believe too, but I'm still a believer in Sirianni here.
I get the comparison. All right, Drew, favorite show moment. What is it? 8-year anniversary today. What is it?
So I told Stelter you screaming about Ben Simmons, but there was one on a serious note too that I just thought of. I remember, I think it was during the Super Bowl run. You guys had a Times Yours caller. I think his name was Vaughn.
Vaughn in Maryland, yeah, dude.
We got to play that.
And you could just tell, I think it was maybe after the Falcons win, where he was just in tears, and you could just tell through the call how much it meant to people.
Well, the one that stood out was when the Super Bowl was won, his call that next day. We'll play that in a second. Drew, give me a great answer for the Sarah Silverman tickets. A number in a phrase.
You got it. I'm going with 15 minutes of fame.
Yeah, 15 minutes of fame. That is a good answer. All right, so Seltzer will dig up some of this audio as we go. Before we get to that, I want to get to Nick Nurse. And Jason, get your assessment of the Joel thing.
Yeah.
So, look, we obviously were very critical of the Sixers yesterday, and I totally believe rightfully so. But I did want to pose today the question to everyone. While their rollout of what the strategy is, how they communicated it to the public was poor, okay, very poor. James, you have made the point that you think there is logic behind the strategy of playing Joel less or a lot less.
Absolutely.
So I just want to ask the question to everyone. Did we lose sight of having that conversation yesterday? And while you don't love the strategy, because ideally the player would just be able to play 75 to 82 games, you don't have to worry about it, given the fact that Joel clearly can't, are you okay with them trying something different, perhaps drastically different? Now, I asked that to you by way of saying, let's play some audio of Nick Nurse. I thought yesterday he described things a lot better than he did 2 days ago. This is an exchange with two different reporters. Let's listen to Nick Nurse yesterday.
In the last 24 hours or so, took it on the chin from former players, media, for not wanting to play back-to-backs, for not being available on opening night. How much of that is him dictating his schedule, and how much of that is you, the front office, sports science, sterile, everyone else?
Yeah, I think it's really a collective effort. I think if you want to point fingers at any one particular person, that's not going to happen. I think our medical is first and foremost. Joel is there, our front office, myself. Everybody's weighing in to make, what we hope is a better plan than it's been, right? Like, we're just trying to get him. There's been very few playoffs where he's felt very good going into them, and we're just trying to do something a little different and get him there this time.
So is that the reason he's not playing in these first 3 games? Is the part of the plan not because he's still dealing with that injury or re-injured himself during the Olympics?
The plan is why he's not playing, yes. He did not re-injure himself, but the plan is we don't feel like he's quite ready, strong enough, light enough, whatever it is that they've determined that he's not quite ready to go, hasn't been in any full court scrimmages, etc. And that's the plan.
All right, so it's a much more coherent answer than he had previously given.
There's a lot more there. When you say he's not strong enough, he's not light enough, now we've got some parameters, I guess, that sort of make sense. Maybe.
Well,
I can get my head around.
Here's
this
what
at
you
least.
don't love about the answer. You would hope in the last month and a half he would have prepared for the season, so he was ready
absolutely
for game one.
Yeah. By the way, the fact that you're not weight-wise the right way, like they can fine you in the NFL, whatever it is, $1,601 per pound per day. What is it now? Do you know what the fine is per pound per day?
Luckily they couldn't fine you for being underweight. Otherwise, I would have had a ton of those.
But Jason, they could criticize you in 2016 for being underweight.
Yeah, I got tons of criticism, but not a lot of fines for that.
All right, Jason, what do you make of these? So you've been here obviously the whole time Joel's been here.
Yeah,
you know all the twists and turns. You're a hardcore Philly sports fan. What do you make of the whole thing? The strategy, the firestorm, the whole thing.
Well, first of all, the strategy should be to try and improve the usage and playing time of Joel to maximize him during the postseason, because that's the only thing that really this Sixers team is trying to prove left. Like, if they don't make it there, it's a colossal train wreck. But Joel has obviously played unbelievable in the regular season. He's been, among, arguably the best player in the league, I think. And I think he's in the postseason is where things have kind of fallen apart, not just for him, for the team. So that's their focus, and I think that should be their focus. What's unique about this situation is typically with rest, you're talking about like after a guy's been through like a grueling schedule, or like, they're wore down, so we're going to give them some time off. This is like to open the season.
Yeah.
That's what's really just hard to wrap your head around. And I think that there's got to be something that is causing them to give him rest, because you wouldn't just do it with a guy who's completely fresh.
You can't do it,
John. Let me give you a theory.
You can't do this. Like, our job. Not even our job. A professional athlete's job is to go and play his sport. Like, that is what you sign a contract to go do. Yeah. I can't get over the fact that they're telling us there's nothing wrong with them. They're trying to tell us there's nothing wrong with him, yet he is still not playing in the season opener.
All right, let me give you John, let me give you a theory. It struck me last night, because, we're all trying to make sense of this, and I'm not saying I'm happy about it, but I'm trying to rationalize it a little bit. So what do you make of this theory that Joel, when he gets injured, and like the actual injury, like a real injury, it typically happens in the spring, or approaching the spring, late winter, spring, after he's played for 2 to 3 months. And he's stretched his legs, to use an analogy of like he's played most games for 2 to 3, 4 months, and then bang, an injury happens. Maybe the theory this year is don't let him stretch his legs. Don't let him play frequently until near the end of the year, so that if you get 2 to 3...
What? No.
Well, John, hold on. Here's what I'm trying to get at. To win the championship, he has to play 2 straight months, essentially without being injured in the playoffs. Like, that's what it requires.
Yeah.
And maybe their thing is, we're going to try to avoid having him play 7 out of 10 games at any point until right before the playoffs. James, do you buy that?
Yeah, sure. Why not? Like, why not? What they have done so far has not worked. Every single year, like, I get the first game thing, and I understand why people get upset about that.
And that was a bad look.
And it was a bad look, and the way they handled it as an organization was a disgrace, as we've talked about.
Correct.
But in terms of, like, the actual plan for Embiid, like, why not try something different? Nothing has worked. Like, you're acting, he's older now.
Yeah,
like, John, do you expect him to play more
his job
games?
to go play.
John, but that's silly, dude. That's silly.
So
time out, though. He can play less. The thing that still doesn't make sense to me is they can play him less and they can alter all these things, but I still don't think it would ever make sense to not play on opening day.
I can't believe
unless there's
that.
something wrong.
I cannot get over that. You can't tell me there's nothing wrong. He's
Yeah.
not playing. It's opening day.
And I think that they can say, like, he's not injured, to the point that, like, there's nothing that's, like, structurally there that's different or anything like that. There could just be some inflammation or some things where it's like, hey, now throughout Joel's regular season, if there's any type of like soreness, we are shutting him down to hold this thing as good as possible. Like, that would make sense to me. But the idea that, like, hey, we're going to play him less in the regular season, so before he's even played a single game, we're not going to play him. I don't know how that rationalizes out.
So here's what worries me the most, Jason, is, and we talked about this extensively yesterday, that it's not so much that a new injury occurred, that it's just there's a debilitating situation that is just going to be what it's going to be moving forward, and they're trying to manage it. And I want to play some audio. Yesterday, we had Mike Quick on the show, obviously one of the most truly great Philadelphia athletes of the 1980s. But as time went on, his career became lesser and lesser and lesser effective because his knees just couldn't hold up. Chase Utley had the same thing. By the way, in pro basketball, Anthony Hardaway had it, Grant Hill had it, different injuries, but like you just weren't the same
Tracy
player
McGrady,
anymore.
Tracy McGrady, these guys.
Tons of players. All right. So, and by the way, Jay Ajayi is another one. It's a lesser level.
Yeah, it's a great example.
Jay Ajayi was a hell of a running back, and he was done by about the age of 27 or something, which was really a shame.
It's one of the reasons we got him when we did. Because everybody kind of knew there was kind of something that was eventually going to happen there.
A shelf life.
Brandon Roy, you mentioned. Yes.
Brandon
that's
Roy.
a classic. They knew it before he was drafted.
Right. That's right. So my fear is that maybe we've entered that zone with Joel. I hope not. We'll see. Let's listen to what Mike Quick said yesterday when we asked Mike about his own experience as an athlete back in the late 80s. For Joel, I'm just curious, what exactly was it? Was it a debilitating situation for you where it just got worse and worse, and it's harder to answer the bell deeper into your career? Is that a fair summation?
Yeah, you're just not the same guy. And I had really bad tendonitis in my knees and ended up having surgery on both knees for patellar tendonitis. It got to the point where I actually had to have surgery. And I don't know his case, but I know that once you start to have issues in those areas, you don't have the same legs, you don't have the same wheels, you can't spring as high, you can't go as quickly. It's just, I realized it was time for me to hang it up when guys would line up press coverage on me and they could get their hands on me and slow me up and take me off my route. When that started to happen, I was like, okay, I need to start thinking about something else.
Jason, did you feel that? Did you get to where you actually felt like your play suffered? I know personally, my dad told me in a preseason game that he was embarrassed for me.
Wow.
My dad said...
It's a heck of a dad.
It's a wow right there.
He said, you're the first person to ever say it, but we've all thought it.
He said, I was embarrassed for the way that you played. You should be too. Like, wow, Dad.
It's like a Gerard Mayo, like head coach. You're soft.
No, I can remember. I know. I can remember a play where I was offset. They said, okay, here we ran it in practice. My job was just to stretch to the flat, and Brad Childress blew the play dead. Get back, reset, do it again, John. Get to the flat fast this time. I did. I'm
trying.
I did. I ran as fast as I could. Yeah. He blew it dead again and said, John, fast, stretch the flat. That's when I should have registered.
I got
Did you have a moment like that? Did you realize?
No.
Or maybe, because to my eye, it didn't look like your
All-pro
play
in your
suffered.
last year. Yeah, you know.
Yeah, but I will say, even though I don't think I had anything like that acutely, like apparent that I was starting to get worse physically. But I knew, like, when you're like one-on-one blocking somebody, the strength that you have, the hips, the explosion, you watch yourself on tape, and you're like, I would have made that block earlier in my. So I think I think that's
rare, though, that you were aware of that. I think that's rare.
Well,
usually guys get blindsided by this.
John, I think if I had to guess, I think you're in the minority on this.
Really?
I mean, if you just don't run as fast, don't you know?
No,
not
really.
Guys who couldn't cover you before can cover you.
It's not that obvious.
I mean, Jalen Hurts knows he can't turn the corner.
I was talking
boy. Oh, boy. Did I go there?
I was talking to
James, I think I went there.
Charles Barkley this offseason. I was like, how'd you know when it was time to hang it up? He's like, man, when you start playing guys that you should be kicking their and it's like, it just ain't happening.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, that's a pretty
I think
good
my concern for Joel is, because I'm no expert on the knees, what do I know? But the meniscus thing, it strikes me like that could be sapping some of his power. And that's not something I don't think you get back. Anyway, I thought what Mike said was interesting, and that's, it's because that's a sport of running, leaping, and landing.
It depends on how they dealt with it,
thousands of times a season, you land.
Remember,
and he's 7'2" and 300 whatever pounds.
And we've heard all about
Yeah.
that. And there have been these past few off seasons. We knew that there was like meniscal stuff, and then we knew that there was a scope. Then we heard that there wasn't, and then we know that there are other things that they can do now too.
Yeah, but you can't.
In the off-season.
You can't completely solve something if it's breaking
once the
down.
cartilage starts to go,
That's the problem.
That's the
Cartilage
of it,
doesn't grow back.
I think that there's still, this is something that is I don't know that it's fair to say that like this is like some debilitating thing like towards the end of somebody's career.
No, I agree,
right?
but it
And
might begin the process, right? I mean, it might.
Well, it
Chronic is the
It
word.
is, right?
Yeah.
He's already having deterioration happen of the joint in some type of way. That's why he's had the surgeries and things like that. But I think that a lot of basketball players go through this. He clearly has ongoing things where he's treating it and what's the word I'm looking for? Paying attention to like where it's at. And I think that there's nothing wrong with that. He's 30 years old. I mean, I know he's played for a long time, but he's still, I mean, that's young. Like even like you have to have some very severe damage at that age to be that young and be kind of chronically done playing a sport like that. So,
Look, we All right, let's get a lot of
Be
calls
held
in
out
here.
of the season opener.
Well, that's 215. He might be like Doc Rivers.
yeah,
who's
but
in his
now
60s
I will say
hobbling
this.
around.
I will say this.
It's a shame.
Now, the way sports science is, even if it is something very, very minor and something that is just like soreness, they hold you out now. And especially with what they're trying to do with Joel to get him to play the best that he can the entire season in the postseason, I could see like, maybe it's not even something that's registering as like a specific acute thing. It could just be like sometimes when things are hurt or things are off, your whole body is just kind of like fatigued from having to deal with that. So like, I don't want to I think that in general, it's probably something very minor, but.
All right, 94 WIP HD1 Philadelphia as we broadcast today from the Tasty Cake studio. Jason with us as he is every Thursday for an hour in studio. Let's get some calls in here. And, of course, you can react to the Sixers last night. Also, the Eagles. We ask you this question. Are you on board right now with the Birds?
I feel better, Jason, after you just said that about Joel. I feel better. Like, this is like new age, next level. We're going to be extra cautious with Joel's stuff. He's seen this new age stuff in the training room.
I don't feel better.
I think
I don't.
So what do you not feel better
I understand.
I don't feel better just because I think it's a bad sign that he couldn't play game one, and I believe that it is unlikely that he will ever be healthy for 2 months in the postseason. I just don't think it's likely. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible. If I was a betting man, if I had to bet my house, which I don't. So, am I ever going to own a house?
I hope so, buddy.
But I got one person earlier today asking me if I'm going to get married.
should.
Now, am I ever going to own a house?
Why don't you own a house?
Maybe because I'm not married.
You don't need to be married to own a house.
Let's go. No, I don't. But I mean, come on, my apartment. Come on.
I didn't own a house till I was married.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
there you
come
go.
on.
I think it helps, yeah.
What helps you if NFL money, all right, buddy? Settle down over there. Let's go to the phones. Let's go to Salvador in Coatesville. Boy, he walked into that. What's up, Salvador?
Yeah, dude. Shout out to you, man. Weren't you complaining about? What were you complaining about? And you left a dump in somebody's toilet.
That's Fred Barnett.
Yeah, he destroyed Fred's toilet
But I didn't
and
do
blamed
that.
it on a 6-year-old girl.
Because it was her, it wasn't me. It's true. Truth is
You're
truth.
about a napkin in the trash can, dude. You left that in somebody's toilet, man. But
Yeah.
hey, Jason, I run into your father-in-law all the time, man. He's your biggest fan, man. He's so proud of you, dude. I just wanted to let you know that.
You said Big Ed? You run into Big Ed?
Yeah, he's an electrician at my job.
You see him over at the Acme?
Yeah,
baby.
Yeah.
It's the best.
How big is he?
He's huge, man. He can play on the line.
How big?
He can play on the line.
6'10".
I want to say he's like
6'10".
He's
Holy
6'10"?
Are you serious?
He's
What?
6'10" or 6'9", Big Ed.
What?
Wow.
I
That's
can't believe we
big.
never knew that.
didn't
That's
either.
definitely big.
Wow.
Hailing from
How much does he
Kensington,
weigh?
Philadelphia.
How much does he weigh, Jason?
You know what? I don't know how much Big Ed weighs.
Is that like
He's-
375 pounds if you're 6'10"
No wonder you call him
or
Big Ed.
6'11"?
That makes a lot of
I don't
sense
think
now.
he's that big. I mean, I've seen pictures of him back in the day. He was a beanpole in high school, but now he's got some girth to him. But
Wow.
I don't think he's 375. He's probably
so big.
close. He's probably similar to me. I bet.
That's wild. All right, Salvador, give me what you got on the Eagles.
All right, well, I wanted to give you my funniest moment. My funniest moment on y'all show was when you read your ridiculous diet list.
Yeah.
You're like, I don't even, what was you eating for breakfast? You're eating like chocolate cake and stuff. Like, dude.
He's eating donuts at 1:30 in the morning.
Clam chowder at like 2 a.m. Yeah, it was bad.
But yeah, on the Birds, man, I'm just hoping that we can get some entertaining football. That's really all I'm looking forward to.
Yeah. No, I hear you, man. All right, Salvador, give me a number in a phrase.
All right, so when you go to use somebody's bathroom, what do they ask you? Number 1 or number 2?
It's not bad. That's especially for probably young kids because you don't talk in those terms more as an adult. But
Do you have number 3?
I have it frequently.
No, but I'm saying, does everyone have number 3? Like, is that a real thing? Because I count number 3. Like, I think you count number 3.
Well, number 3 is my number 1. It's my go-to.
That's messed up. It's
I'm
not
well
supposed
aware.
to be like
But
that. Do you
Jason,
know what we're talking
I
about,
have
Jason?
no idea what we're talking
You got
about.
number 1.
Guessing.
You know
I know
number 1.
number 1 and number 2.
Yeah,
But you don't know what number 3 is?
I'm trying to wrap my head
Jason,
around
think
what
of
number
Jason.
3
Think
could
of a
be.
blend.
No,
Oh, dude.
Maybe with some force, some exit velocity.
Explosive blend.
All right, I'm picking up on it now.
And how could you not at this point?
Jason,
Number 3 happens a lot after like a pre-workout drink.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Or if
gotcha.
you're taking a lot of creatine.
Yeah, exactly. I gotcha.
Yeah.
Except for
I'm
Joe,
behind
it
you.
happens far more frequently than that.
Happens
What
just
was the
about
stuff
every day.
that they would bring
Oh, my
around
God.
before the games that was like potassium, like the potassium juice that they would come around and get? Maybe they stopped
That
giving
might
it.
have ended.
Yeah.
All right. By the way, at 8:30 today, or excuse no,
Clogged
not
all
at,
the toilets at the.
at 9
Yeah.
at 9:15 today. Life advice with the hammer. Get the scenarios in Facebook, Twitter, and the text line. 3 ways you can interact with the show. What do you need help with? I'll spend you some good advice coming up at 9:15. To which life advice with Jason Kelce right now.
Oh, okay.
From Joe to camera.
Here we go.
It's gonna be
Impromptu.
it's going to be a question based on what we were just talking about, and then a comment.
The number 3 thing?
The question, Jason Kelce, are you, as you should be, a bidet man?
Am I a bidet man?
Do you use a bidet?
I disagree with the leading question.
Yeah,
by the
as
way.
you should be.
As you should be.
I mean, it's fine.
Strike
Listen,
that
I'm
from
going to
the
answer it how I'm
record.
going to answer it. I don't care about the leading, but
Yeah.
I will admit I have never, to my knowledge, tried a bidet.
It is so legitimate.
To my knowledge, is a great.
And I have had opportunities, but mentally I just haven't been able to go there.
Mm-hmm.
I have heard tons of unbelievable reviews, and if we're being honest, there's no question it gets it cleaner, right?
Without a doubt,
The
yes.
paper, we're just smearing
Yes.
smaller and smaller amounts
That's
until we're
caveman.
comfortable getting up.
Guys, the paper is a cave. That's the move of the caveman.
You're right.
The
We're just
caveman
like-
would grab a leaf.
Yeah.
All right, we're now in the year 20. All I'm saying, Jason, is trust.
Yeah, but are we
Me.
getting too advanced? All right, so
Trust me.
I will say there's like I sit on these toilets now and they're like heated
Yeah.
and there's like all these electronics and it like
I don't
weirds me
want
out.
all
It's
that.
too much.
Like, you don't-
I can't
right.
do it. Like whenever I sit on a hot toilet
something
seat,
more
I feel really
productive.
uncomfortable. Like, it's like not. I like that coldness when it touches my rear
You
end.
want the heat, don't you?
The heat's not the main thing for me. I will just say this, Jason.
But you like it.
I do not dislike it. I would.
He's a man of comfort.
I would guarantee you
Yeah.
that if you went bidet, you wouldn't go back.
I will say-
You can't say that about him.
Guaranteed.
You cannot say that
I will
about
say
him.
I've been in Malaysia and I had to. Me and Connor Barber were scootering across the city that we were in, and you stop at a gas station. I got to use the bathroom, and all it is just a hole in the ground.
Yeah.
And they give you a hose. So I kind of did use
hose?
a bidet.
Wow.
But that was what you
That's
had
funny. That's
an
great.
option for. So
Joe said something that I just wanted to retouch on.
Uh-oh, this sounds bad.
The number 3 thing, you said that is your regular. That is
Yeah.
your
this could be
number 1. That is your
every day.
every day.
Yeah, I'd say it's essentially every day, just about. Yeah.
You know that's not normal at all.
that's why I've
is
seen
in no way. I think
many
that there,
doctors.
in some ways, if you eat the right things, you don't even have to worry about bidet
Well,
or paper
I
or
will
any
say,
of that stuff.
If you
don't-
are constantly, let's be honest, if you're constantly having number 3s and you're constantly wiping like that, there's going to be some irritation down
Well,
there.
that's
so the
another
bidet
thing.
probably makes a
That's
ton of
another
sense.
thing we haven't even touched on. He's unaware that you're destroying
Well,
that
all right.
part of yourself.
Jason, is this
because
what you
of this.
expected to
Number
talk about
3.
this
Hey,
morning?
this is
or-
what I prefer to talk about.
all right, let's listen to Vaughn in
It's a whole
Maryland.
new level of load management.
It is.
Jason.
That's
Just
true.
in case
That's
you
true.
were-
All right.
Bang.
Well done.
All right. Vaughn in Maryland. So, 8-year anniversary today of our program, going back to the midday show. And thanks to everyone who's listened through the years, including right now. We do truly appreciate it. So one of the things we're asking you today is favorite moment in the 8 years that we've been doing this show since the midday show. James, we got a call earlier saying the phone call from Vaughn in Maryland after the Eagles won the Super Bowl. And I totally agree. This is probably in my top 5.
It's definitely in my top 5.
And Jason, you've probably never heard this, although maybe you did as a listener back then.
Little context. He was calling all season long. Throughout the season, this guy kept calling the Times Yours line and talking about how we were going to win the Super Bowl, how much he believed in the team. He would get emotional all season long.
I said, Jason, when you guys win the Super Bowl, the next day we do a show, and it was the most amazing show, obviously. And at the end, with Times Yours, we got this call.
It's Vaughn from Maryland, man. It's Vaughn from Maryland. I've been calling y'all all year long. And I kept saying we're going to the Super Bowl. And I kept saying we're going to the Super Bowl. We won the Super Bowl. We the won the freaking Super Bowl. We won, man. We are the world champions. We the world champions, man. I can't stop crying, man. I'm serious. That's why I was walking off. I'm crying, man. Hey. E-A-G-L-E-S.
Love it, man.
Message.
Just love it. I remember crying when he was crying. I remember hearing that day. It was powerful. Jason, you had, you, Nick Foles, the whole squad.
Of course.
How's everyone doing?
I mean, the impact. It's just, can you just describe what it's like when people come up to you and thank you for that moment?
I still get. I was up in Fishtown yesterday, and people were like, "Thanks for 2017." I'm like, I guess it's just going to happen for the rest of my life. Like, we're removed from that, but I think it's And somebody told me that year when we were going to it, it's like, man, not only do you have a chance to win it, but you have a chance to be the first.
Yeah.
And I think that everybody. Every Philadelphia Eagle fan that was around for that is going to remember that forever. And obviously all of us on the team. And I think it really didn't fully hit how unbelievably, not fulfilling, but like
meaningful.
Yeah. It's
big?
meaningful, but it's like,
I was thinking big too.
Yeah. It's how just impactful it was to the city and to the fans, really until the parade. You always know it's a big deal. And I came from Cleveland, so we never had a Super Bowl. We always wanted to win one. But, man, the parade was really on full display. And leading up to it, how much it really impacted the city and how much, fans had been waiting for this for generations. I say this story a lot. There's people with ashes out on the on the parade route, right? So the relative actually was at the parade because they talked about wanting to be there. I think, this is an old team that has a lot of history in a city that is the birthplace of this country.
That's right.
And all of this had been leading up to that moment. So I think the collective outpouring of emotions was so unifying, and like everybody felt that it just really was an awesome time to be a Philadelphian, and I think it's something that all of us will be able to share for the rest of our lives.
Love it. Beautiful.
Can I real quick just say something? Hey, Jason.
Yes.
Thank you for 2017.
There you go. Love it. All right, coming up, more with Jason. Also, Jaws on the NFC East. Caught me off guard this week with something he said about the NFC East. We'll get to that. And Doc Rivers, believe it or not, said something yesterday. It's not only kind of funny, but kind of made sense. That and more, your phone calls on all these topics on 94 WI.